Hello and welcome to another video from ArMatrtix.com. I am StevieB, happy to have you all with us today. Today I'm out doing some drone hunting. So while I am hunting some drones, I want to go over something that will be very beneficial for people who are just starting Entropia in 2023. If you are new to the game as we celebrate the 20th anniversary and you're just getting started, this is going to be a video you're going to want to pay attention to. A close friend of mine called me the other day and asked me some pertinent questions. I've covered most of this material in other videos. This is something that more experienced players will probably find very basic and elementary. However, sometimes basic and elementary is the best thing that you can do. Sometimes going over those basics is what matters most. There was a famous time where there was an NFL game, I think it was a Super Bowl, and at halftime the coach walked into the locker room and the whole team was there, and he held up a football and he said, "Gentlemen, this is a football." Right, so sometimes going back to the basics is the important part. So a friend of mine asked me, how do I know what weapon to use? How do I know when I should be moving from one weapon to the next? How do I know how to progress through the weapons? And then how do I know what to hunt? Well, very simple. Let's say you're a brand new player. You have 0 skills. Good news is the options are pretty much one and done. You're going to be using the trade terminal. I don't care if you like it. I don't care if you don't like it. That's your option. If you think there's another option, there's not. There is if you want to do some really stupid things. And for all of those who are just now starting, feel free to do what I did. I was absolutely convinced that I didn't want to use limited weapons that couldn't be repaired and I had to buy another one. I wanted to buy some really super expensive, unlimited piece of junk I couldn't use that was going to cost me a fortune. Yeah, if you would like to make that same mistake, feel free. For those of you who are smarter than I was when I started 5 years ago, listen to every single person that plays this game on a daily basis and just know that limited weapons are generally the way to go. Trust me, I've been there. I did it. I was the idiot that when I first started, I paid a small fortune for a level 100 unlimited weapon that had crappy stats that I couldn't use effectively, that just cost me money and was horrific to use. Still collecting dust. So, that said, how would I do it if I was starting in 2023 as a brand new player? Easy. You start at Camp Icarus, you go to the trade terminal, you pick a weapon. Doesn't matter if it's a rifle, pistol, a sword, a knife. Generally speaking, I would suggest rifle. And then you go hunt puny creatures. I would pick one type of puny creature, and I would stick to that one type of puny creature. That way I get all the codex for that puny creature. Now, back in the day, before codex, you could do any puny creature, and it all counted towards the kill count mission. We don't have that anymore. So pick you one type of puny creature you like, whether it's the blue dinos, whether it's the Berklide, whatever. Stick with it. Only that one. And that way you're going through your codex, and when you burn up those TT weapons, when they're of absolutely no more use, you throw it away and you get you another one. And you repeat this, and you repeat this, and you repeat this. Now, your goal is essentially going to be that first week or two, you want to get your defense skills up and your stats up to where you've got at least level 3, 4, maybe 5 evader. So that way you can move on from something other than puny creatures. Ideally, your next step is going to be Exosaur Young. They're level 3. I'm sure everybody and their mother who has watched my videos has heard me talk about Exosaur Young at North Swamp Camp. And you're going to take those wonderful TT weapons and you're going to go to North Swamp Camp and you're going to hunt puny creatures until your eyes bleed. And then once your eyes bleed, you're going to keep hunting puny creatures until your eyes melt out of your head, like the people who opened the Ark of the Covenant in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, or the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I always get those two movies mixed up, although both great movies. So then, once your eyes have completely bled out of your head, you're going to keep killing those Exosaur Young at North Swamp Camp with your TT weapons until literally your body just decays and you fall apart. Because that's how it's set up. You grind and you grind and you grind and you grind some more. Now, why are we doing this? We're doing this because each weapon has 2 different professions. If you hit P, it'll pull up your professions. Each weapon you use is going to have a hit profession. So like laser sniper hit. So that's going to be laser rifle hit. And then it's going to have a damage profession, range laser damage. So the damage that a ranged laser weapon can put out. You'll notice these levels are different. My laser sniper hit is 82. My range laser damage is 76. Typically, generally speaking, your damage will trail behind your hit level. Almost 99% of the time. There is a damage unlock at level 80 I'm trying to get to, because as you can tell, my BLP and my laser are really trailing pretty badly here. However, that will fix itself whenever I unlock Kill Strike at level 80. So, what we need to do, we need to save these over here. We can pull up our inventory, and we can pull up our weapon stats by hitting view, right-clicking on the weapon and view information. Now, it does not matter what weapon you're looking at. You want to go to this second tab, this little spyglass looking thing, where all the stats are. The only stat you're going to see on the first page is the TT value and the damage per second. That's it. The second page is what you want. At the top, we have our efficiency rating. That's always good to know. We've talked about that plenty. We have the weight, which really isn't too terribly important. We have the current tier of the weapon. And again, we know that unlimited weapons, you have to pay to unlock all these little tiers down here if you want to add enhancers to it. Versus limited weapons, these unlock automatically. This is one of the good things about limited weapons, is as you use them, these tiers will unlock. You can add various enhancers to them if you choose to do so. Downside to limited weapons, even though those tiers unlock, eventually they do go to 0 TT, and then you have to start the whole process over. Versus with unlimited, you are making a long-term investment as you unlock these tiers. Again, for the purposes of this video, we're talking about new players, and we're talking about the average player. Somebody trying to play on 20, 30 bucks a month. So we're not talking about buying Uber weapons that cost $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. We're not talking about spending hundreds of dollars on tiering costs. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about the new players starting right now in 2023. And we're talking about people who want to play on a $20, $30, $40, $50 a month budget. Okay? So not people who are trying to get to level 500 like Messi in less than 6 months. It's not doable. In fact, for purposes of this video, I'm going to pull these enhancers off. Okay. So as we move down the list, now we see tier increase rate. This tells you how fast you can unlock these tiers. On unlimited weapons, it's going to be some number over 200. On unlimited weapons, it's going to be some number over 4,000. The higher the number, the faster you'll be able to unlock these tiers. Remember, we're talking limited weapons in this video. Now, directly under that, we will see some information. Our professions that we need to be able to use the weapon. We will see our current profession level on the left and the profession level needed to use it on the right. So to use this weapon, you have to be level 20 range BLP damage. That's the number on the right. You'll notice I'm level 73, so I'm well above that. You also need BLP Pistolier hit level 20, and you'll notice I'm 63.6, so I'm well above that. So because I have profession levels well above what is required, then when we get down to all this other information down here, you'll notice that I've got the max stats. So my critical hit ability, 10 over 10. My hit ability, 10 over 10. My damage interval, 16.5 to 33 of 16.5 to 33. Uses per minute, 76 over 76. So I'm completely maxed. All the numbers on the left match all the numbers on the right. If your professions that you need to be able to use the weapon are below what the weapon needs to be used, these numbers will not be the same on the left as on the right. They will be lower. So let's say my hit ability is not 63. Let's say my hit ability is only 10. Well, I'm not going to be at 10 over 10 and 10 over 10 on my hit and critical hit. I might be at like 4 over 10 and 5 over 10. And that's horrible, because that means I'm going to miss a lot of shots and I'm going to get very, very, very few crits. Which means that it doesn't matter what this efficiency rating up here says. It doesn't matter what the damage per peck of the weapon is. I'm going to be missing left and right. I'm just going to be throwing money down the toilet. Now let's say that my damage interval, or my damage profession, was not 73. Let's say instead of 73 it was 13. Well, I need level 20. Well, what that would mean is down here where it says damage interval 16.5 to 33, 16.5 to 33, it wouldn't say that. It might say something like 5 through 10 / 16.5 to 33. What that means is every time I pull the trigger on this gun, it's going to put out a minimum of 16.5 damage and a maximum of 33 damage, and somewhere in between on most shots. Most shots are not going to be 16.5 or 33. I might pull the trigger and hit for 20. I might pull the trigger and hit for 30. I might pull the trigger and hit for 26. But that's the damage interval. It will do somewhere between 16.5 on the low end and 33 on the high end. Well, if I don't have the proper damage profession to use this weapon, and I'm only doing 5 damage to 10 damage or 5 damage to 12 damage, I am horribly underusing the weapon. Again, just throwing money down the toilet. So you want to be sure that before you start using a different weapon, before you move on from those TT weapons, you want to be sure the weapon you use, you have proper hit and damage skills to use it to its full effect. Now there is something called skill increase bonus. We can talk about that in another video, where when you get really close to being able to use a weapon, you get extra skills if you use it, but you use it before you're really ready to. What's that sound like? That sounds like, well, you're really not ready to use this. You're going to be throwing money down the toilet, but as long as you throw money down the toilet and you're pretty close to using it, we'll give you a few extra skills for it. Does that sound like a really smart way to play? No. So personally, not a fan of skill increase bonus. I don't want it. I would rather have the proper ability to use the weapon to its maximum effect and just get the normal amount of skills and getting slightly more skills by paying a bajank load of money for it. Now, there's also the problem of whenever your professions are lower than required, you won't even have the correct number of attacks per minute. I've got 76 attacks per minute of 76 possible attacks per minute. If my professions were lower than what would be needed, I might only have 30 or 40 attacks per minute. Now remember, the damage interval usually trails, or the damage profession. So usually your hit and your critical hit and all that will be on par, but you might have a weapon where even though all that's on par, your attacks per minute are a little bit low and your damage interval isn't where it should be. And that is because your damage profession is trailing. That's why you need both these professions to be above this number over here on the right. Now, once you have the weapon, remember we're talking limited weapons, ArMatrtix weapons specifically, what should you do? Well, you should have a P20 extender to put on it. That eats 20% of that decay. That's easy. That's a no-brainer. That's the same across all the ArMatrtix weapons if you're talking rifle or pistol. Then you need to add an amp. Now, I don't have an amp on this because it would lower my efficiency, but the amp usually, if you get a decent amp, will increase the efficiency and will also increase the damage interval. How do we know what amp to use? Very simple. See this damage interval number? So remember, this is the lowest amount of damage it will do per shot. This is the most it will do per shot. So 16.5 at the low end, 33 at the high end. That means the biggest amp this weapon can handle is something that does 16.5 damage. So whatever this lower number is, that is the biggest amp it can handle. So this is very easy with ArMatrtix weapons. Excuse me, I got a cough today, guys. With ArMatrtix weapons, you start after you get through all the TT stuff. You've been using your TT weapons till your eyes bleed, right? You want to get your hit and damage profession to level 15. Hit and damage profession to level 15. What that will do is that will max you out on the LR-10, the LP-10. Laser pistol, laser rifle. Now, again, it depends. Are you using pistol professions or rifle professions? This is why I say start with the TT rifle, because the rifles are going to be where you're usually going to want to be at least starting off the first couple of months anyway. You can play with pistols and knives and stuff later. So we want to get our laser rifle damage and our laser sniper hit, this one right here, and range laser damage. We want both of those to level 15. We want to be above level 15. When we do, we can buy an ArMatrix LR-10. The ArMatrix series is awesome. Whatever the name of it is, it maxes out 5 levels higher. So on the LR-10, you need professions in damage and hit of 15. On the LR-55, you need laser sniper level 60. Laser damage level 60. On the LR-95, you need level 100 on both hit and damage. So it's very simple. Whatever the name of the ArMatrix is, LR blank 20. Okay, that means I need hit and damage profession levels 25 in order to use it properly. Here's the other beautiful thing. Once we get it, we throw the P20 extender on it, right? The only extender we really want to use. But how do we figure out the amp? Well, remember, I said it's the lower of those two damage interval numbers. The beauty of it is, the ArMatrtix line comes with a complementary amp line that is literally named after the amount of damage the amp does. So the ArMatrtix L for laser amp 16, I think it's P. It's like PB, whatever. The L amp is laser amp, which means goes on laser weapon, right? We have to put a laser amp on a laser weapon, a BLP amp on a BLP weapon. But we're using laser. So the ArMatrtix L amp is what we're looking for, laser amp. And like with my gun, I can only do 16.5 damage on the lower of my two damage interval numbers. So I want the laser amp, ding, 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 16. If my weapon could handle 55 to 110 damage, 55 being the lower of the two numbers, I would want the L amp 55. If my weapon did 70 to 140 damage, 70 would be the lower of the two damage intervals, I would want the L amp 70. This makes it very, very, very easy to figure out which amp to get. You can snatch them off auction super quick without any thought process to it, because you just simply have to know the lower of the two damage interval numbers. And amps don't work in half numbers, so there's no 16 and a half amp. There's a 16, and then there's going to be a 17. Well, you can't use the 17, so you might as well get the 16. No need to overamp, because again, then you're just throwing away money. So you now have a weapon that you are able to fully use, hit and damage. You've maxed out all the stats on it, good for you. Now you throw your extender on it to eat some of that decay, the P20, good for you. You found the appropriate amp by looking at the lower of the two damage interval numbers and getting the amp that corresponds to that. Good for you. Now guess what you go do? You hunt until your eyes bleed. And then, whenever your hit and damage professions go up by another 5 levels, you simply repeat this process. Now, if you're at level 20 hit and damage for laser rifle, now you can use the LR-15. Now you repeat the same process. Put a P20 extender on it, look at the damage interval, find that smaller number, L amp, whatever that number is, and then throw that amp on there, and you go right back to hunting, and you hunt till your eyes bleed. And then you end up 5 levels higher. You're now level 25. So now you move on to the LR-20. Put a P20 extender on it, look at that damage interval, find the lower of the two numbers, get the corresponding L amp from the ArMatrtix line. Not just any L amp, specifically the ones from the ArMatrtix line. Because if you have an ArMatrtix weapon and you're using an ArMatrtix amp that's appropriate, it's going to raise the efficiency. But virtually every time. I think there might be a few small exceptions to that, not very many. And then you just keep repeating this process. At level 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. I think there's even 105 and 110 now. I don't really know if I don't think they make limited weapons beyond level like 110. Maybe not even over level 100. I'm not 100% sure on that. But for the average player starting in 2023, it's literally just that simple. Now, people want to argue with me on this all day long, especially new players. And again, I was there. I did the whole, I've got to buy a super expensive unlimited weapon and throw away a lot of money on something I can't use. I literally shot the gun for like 20 minutes and I realized how stupid that was. And again, this is not for people who go, hey, I've got $80,000 to throw away. I want to be the next Never Die and get my name in the newspapers and buy the rarest weapon there is with the highest DPP and the highest efficiency and all that and be level 300 by Friday. This is not for you. But for the average person starting Entropia in 2023, wanting to know how to go through the weapon progression, that is it. Now the next question is, how do I know what to hunt? Well, that gets a little bit more complicated. We'll essentially save most of that for another video because you've got to talk about your defense skills, your armor choices, damage types, mob selection, loot pools the mobs have. Are you hunting for markup or something else? Yada, yada, yada. But generally speaking, it should not take you 9 bajillion shots to kill something. Generally speaking, somewhere between 10 to 20 shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. See how I'm doing that? Now, I'm not seriously counting it off every time because these mobs have the same HP. I shouldn't have to do an excessive amount of healing. The only reason I'm having to do as much healing as I'm having to do here is because I end up pulling 2 or 3 of these at a time sometimes. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get the idea. So if I'm between 10 to 20 shots per mob, I'm probably right on track. If I'm hitting it twice and I'm overkilling it by 20 HP, that's probably bad. If I'm sitting there shooting the same mob for 18 minutes before it dies, that's incredibly bad. So generally speaking, general rule of thumb, 10 to 20 shots should be about perfect. Now, does that mean you can't go a little bit bigger sometimes? No, there's times I do. Does that mean you can't go a little bit smaller sometimes? No, there's times that I do. But generally speaking, you want to stay in that range. So if you find yourself with a weapon that can do 40 DPS, 40 damage per second, and you're trying to kill a mob with 9,000 HP, it's not going to work for you. If you find yourself with a weapon that can do 300 damage per second, and you're trying to kill mobs that have 20 HP, that's also not going to work for you. Again, you want to keep everything in balance, more or less, right? So, this is also true in other aspects of the game, like even armor. I wouldn't come wear Supremacy armor or Mayhem armor, some of the best armors in the game with the best protections in the game, to shoot some lower level drones. That would be incredibly stupid and incredibly bad all around, right? So you kind of want to keep everything in balance. Generally speaking, by the time you get familiar enough to climb the ArMatrtix ladder, by the time you get enough game knowledge through killing all those punies, all those exosaurs, getting to level 15, figuring out how to use the auction, find the proper amp, stuff like that. Generally speaking, you're probably going to be ready to move on to Argonauts over by Twin Peaks. That was my favorite spot. There are Argonauts in other places, but you want the level 5s. The level 5s are what you're after, not the level 50s. And once you can get there, once you can get to that point, now you've kind of made it. Now you're going to start seeing opportunities open up where you can hunt other mobs, where you can have more fun doing it, do more things with your friends. It's really going to open a lot of opportunities. So to really grind it out and get past those initial stages where you're using those TT weapons and you're stuck at North Swamp Camp or at Camp Icarus, if you can get past that, that's the hardest part of getting started. Once you're past that, once you're to where you're using the LR-10 and you can go knock back some level 5 Argonauts, that's where really the game starts to become fun, because it's still a grind fest, but it's a grind fest with options at that point. So I'm kind of going to leave it there for today. We'll talk more about stuff that you can do if you're a new player in 2023 later on. I have some more videos coming for you guys later this week, I hope. As you guys know from my previous video, my life is an absolute nightmare right now. It's an absolute wreck. I cannot even explain. When I say I took a nuclear bomb to the face, I took a nuclear bomb to the face. So bad to the point that yesterday I literally just started screaming, and once I started screaming, it's like I could not close my mouth. It's like it just flooded out. So, needless to say, it has not gotten better. That's why I've told you guys, if you need to get a hold of me, if you're looking for a withdrawal from EarnPed or something, holler at me through my email, sbraggs62@gmail.com, sbraggs62@gmail.com. I check that email at least once a day, every other day, bare minimum. So holler at me through there. Head over to EarnPed, because when you earn, we earn. Obviously, that's the best way you guys can help support us. But also hit that like button and that subscribe button and that bell icon, because it doesn't just help our channel, but it gets these videos in front of people that play other games like Entropia, people who play World of Warcraft, people who play other MMOs, people who play other real cash economy games, It introduces them to Entropia. It brings them into the game. It's not just good for us. It's good for y'all. It's good for the economy. It's good for the game. It's good for MindArk. It's good for everybody. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Sip, sip, smack, smack. Y'all know the rest. Good luck, Stevies.